Hey, today I wanted to talk a little bit about evacuations, and we're in the what would have normally be considered the start of wildfire season. Obviously, we're at least a month ahead, and we're seeing wildfires throughout BC. So, it always is best to be prepared. You want to ensure that you have a grab and go bag. You know where all your family members would meet. In addition, the municipality has been doing a lot of work on establishing escape routes, establishing command and control if we have an event happen. For example, in the Lake subdivision, we've been working in that area with several of the partners, the Lakes Community Association, the RCMP, and district staff. So we want to talk a little bit about if we were to have a fire event that is threatening any part of the Lake subdivision, and we had to do what is called a tactical evacuation. So the province gives the fire department and the RCMP the ability to evacuate anybody prior to a state of emergency being declared. So this is a situation where people's lives are at risk. If it's judged necessary, the RCMP, fire department, and potentially search and rescue would be broadcasting through your neighborhood. They would also be trying to knock on every door and make sure that people are aware and they need to get out. When that occurs, that means that the incident is happening very, very quickly. People need to go immediately. In other incidents where you are put on alert, that means that you could potentially be moved out at a later time. So you need to be prepared, but it's not going to happen immediately. Where tactical means it's happening right now. So in the event of a lakes evacuation, we have three areas now that we can move people out of that area. The first one is the main road of Lake Hill. Lake Hill is our primary means of moving people out there. It's a good wide road. We have good access there, but that's maybe not always possible. If a fire was on Lake Hill, it might block that access. So our secondary access would be on East Ridge Drive, and that is a point where the Minister of Transportation has allowed the district to put a gate in on the highway. There's a couple of other gates that are situated there. We don't want people to get down that laneway to the highway and then get blocked there for whatever reason. So we would prevent people from driving down there until we get that gate open. When we open the gate, it's locked all the time normally, but when it's open, the RCMP have to shut the highway down because it's a high-speed highway. That's the only way we can access people onto that highway. So the RCMP has been established. We've actually practiced it. The RCMP would shut the highway down, and our public works people who are on 24-hour call would immediately go up and they would start getting ready to unlock the gates and let people out onto the highway. Generally it would be southbound heading towards Winfield, but there is we can change the routing of the highway and move people northbound. So that's our second access. Our third one that we're just establishing right now is at the end of Stillwater. And Stillwater goes, right now there's some cement barricades. We're putting in a proper gate that would be lockable and can be easily unlocked by any of the partners. So it's fire department, public works, or the RCMP can unlock that gate. We would then access through private property and getting down to Powell Road. As any tactical evacuation, we can enter anybody's property at any time. So yes, it is private property you're going to be crossing, but we have the permission of the province to utilize that. A couple of other things that we've been doing as well. We put up signage. So there's signage on Lake Hill indicating that's the primary evacuation route. We have lots of visitors and people staying up in the lakes that don't normally live there. So this gives them an indication of which direction they should be heading initially. They will be told which way to go. There's also signage on the secondary access, the one off of East Ridge Drive. And it's signs on Lake Hill, and it points in direction that this is a secondary evacuation route. We've also been working with Mayor and Council and the community associations to try and spread this information out there to everybody in the lakes. Everybody needs to know this. When we do evacuate people initially, we have Beasley Clubhouse, which is down on Woodsdale Road. And that is where we would open that building up and we would move or get people to move to that location. They can register online. The provincial government has a website now that you can, when you're going to be evacuated or are evacuated, you can go online and register. We like people to do that, even if they don't need accommodation, even if they have friends or family where they can stay. It's a means of us getting a hold of them when we can allow them to back into their properties. It also allows them to have access to incidentals and potentially hotel rooms or accommodation. So if you have to flee your home and you don't take anything with you except your kids and your dog, it will give you vouchers for dog food. It'll give you food vouchers for restaurants. It'll give you clothing vouchers. The provincial government funds that program. So it's very important that you do register, even if you don't need the service necessarily right away, but you may within a day or two find that you do. So we encourage everybody to do that.
Well, you never know. But I mean, they're painting, so I mean, what could go wrong?
The district is broken down into 37, I believe it is, zones, and each one of the zones are if Steve is or Brent or the fire department are in a situation and they have to say, okay, let's see, these guys out. We've got it figured, and Scott and his team are going to work with how that sort of gets set up. We've met with the RCMP. It actually has applications for the RCMP with
Feeling a lot about, hey, you know, we know there's a new emergency access that goes out onto the highway. You know, why is it locked? Why isn't it open? So that, you know, in an emergency we can just blast through, because hey, when an emergency happens, who's going to unlock it? Who's going to move that big barricade and all those kinds of things? So, and it's been kind of constant from a lot of people up here. So we thought maybe, you know, we have a get together for people that have some, you know, want to get a bit further knowledge. So we want to talk just a little bit about it. We can take a walk down there and have a look at it. So a couple of other things we've done recently. So we put evacuation signs up, and that's still a bit of a work in progress, but you'll see them up at the end here, blue signs say this is a secondary. So an event happens up in here, whether it's a wildfire or even a house fire in summertime with strong winds, you know, things start to, you know, move and we start to lose more homes. So Lake Hill is still our primary way. So, you know, get out there, there's a nice roundabout, so the traffic can really flow out of there pretty quickly. So that's our first choice. This would be our second choice. So we have two gates up top and we have a barrier down below. The barrier on the highway, it actually is a very expensive barrier because the Minister of Highways do not want anybody to get onto their highway through kind of a makeshift setup like this. So it took, I think it was almost 2 years to get that through highways. That barrier, my understanding, came out of California. They use them on the freeways down there. So part of the deal though is you can't open it unless the highway is shut. So that's why, and we don't want to get people all lined up down the hill here with their cars and then something bad happens and they're jammed or somebody breaks down. So we would probably stage up here and try and move people down to that. So what we've prearranged for this particular site is we have a public works person on emergency roads 24 hours a day. So we constantly call these guys at night for motor vehicle accidents or water main breaks or whatever. So they're in tune to it. So they've all been trained to go down there and have these two upper gates and the main gate ready to open. And it's a hydraulic gate, so it's actually a one-person operation down there. It doesn't take, you know, there was talks of, oh, you need heavy equipment, you need that, the next thing. The other thing that we did is we did a walkthrough with the RCMP, and they would be involved with a tactical evacuation. So they're going door to door. You know, quite often, like in Nighthawk, there were firefighters were doing it. Search and rescue eventually came in. We would peel off a couple of the RCMP, and they would go immediately and block that highway. So they go up to that cut through in the highway, they come down and they would shut it down. Ultimately, long term, they would actually bring in from Vernon and they would divert it through Palmawash. But that would be the quick start to get that gate open. Once the gate's open, you have 2 lanes right out onto the highway. You can also walk through the tunnel, as everybody's pretty much aware. You could drive through with a little car, but it's probably not the way we would recommend at this point. And a lot of people were kind of concerned about why is it locked all the time. So that's one. The other one that we're doing is a change on Stillwater Court. So it goes into the undeveloped. It's Wanky from the mall. He owns it. about 600 acres there. It's going to be next to where Wintara eventually will be built phase 2. So right now you go up and there's cement barricades there. So Scott is arranging, he's got it on order. They're going to move those cement barricades to the sides, and there's going to be a swing gate there. So that it'll be another opening. When you go through that gate, it's a very drivable. The motorbikes and ATVs have beaten it to death, right out to a gravel road that takes you right down to Powell Road. So it's like a straight shot right through. So, you know, depending on where the incident is, I mean, that may be a good option, but if it's, you know, halfway here, then this may be our primary option. So, and when what we call a tactical evacuation, so we can go into any area with the RCMP and we can move people out. We don't need approval, but the next step would be the province through the mayor and council do a declaration, and then that gives us the legal authority to move people out. But the province has said in an emergency, fire and police, they can just start moving people. So you would get either a knock on the door or the RCMP would be coming through saying, you know, get out now, go to your secondary evacuation on, you know, this road here. So, for example, we had a fire over on Clearwater subdivision. And before that, townhouses were put in bonding. It was all fairly heavily along Lodge Road there. We had a fire there and went right up the hill and up into the backyards of the homes. So initially we had maybe 4 or 5 RCMP from Lake Country. Within about 45 minutes, we had 50 officers from Kelowna. They just emptied Kelowna out and burned it and brought them here because we thought we were going to have to evacuate that whole neighborhood. So they will be traffic controlled, but it would probably take a little while, to be honest with you, down there.
Because, you know, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes there's a bit of a wait to get on that traffic circle. And if there's an emergency here, it would be nice to have traffic
Just
on
getting
Osceola closed
going
off
through.
so that we can get through.
Yeah, like I say, it would happen, but it might take a little bit of time. You know, especially if we're trying to get the highway blocked or, you know, whatever. If we're not involved up here, or the evacuation is moving ahead fairly quickly, then the RCMP have the ability to kind of free somebody up initially. Public Works, Scott's guys, so he's got a crew. So things start going bad. If it's during the day, he's got a big crew on, and they got water guys. So I don't know, there's probably 50 of them altogether. So they would be pulling those guys in, and they would, you know, the roads guys or traffic guys too. Got those open, and then we just start pushing people through.
How quickly you respond within, let's say, 10 minutes, I'd imagine?
I would say average, yeah.
Give or take 10 minutes. The fire's burning. The fire is considered dangerous. How quickly will the decision be made to open this? How quickly will it take from the moment we get a phone call until the moment we need to start leaving? What are we looking at? Because the fire's growing very quickly.
I would say probably, you know, our biggest concern would be probably up Apex.
Fair.
Because you're on backing on, and then across the top here. I would say, like, this time of year, you know, we got a decent column of smoke. We would start moving people out of those areas right away. So we would start, you know, getting them out. We have a couple of other tools. I mean, the forestry is pretty good. So, you know, they have a lot of resources bopping around all over. So up on the connector right now, they got a lot of helicopters and all over. As soon as it's an interface fire, they'll start pulling resources. So we'll get a
interface fire?
between where's homes versus woodland.
Okay.
So they call it, you know, it's called an interface fire versus like a fire up in Oyama up at the lakes there. Yeah, they went up there, they had a helicopter, they had 4 people, and they had some bulldozers. But to them, that's like, yeah, it's probably doing the force good, and we're not that concerned about it. Down here, they'll throw a lot of resources at it very quickly. We also have a big sprinkler unit that takes a lot of water. We have to be able to hook to a fire hydrant, but we can actually set it up and we can leave it running by itself even. So if we had a fire coming up from the woodlands that way, we can set it up behind those houses, and it can set up a real water line. It shoots about 300 feet either direction, but you have to have like fire hydrants like up here. So that would be another thing. If we could kind of pinpoint where it's coming through, we would set that up as well. Rose crew and that come in here
pull both pins and push the whole thing straight across the road, or in most cases we would pull this pin, and then it's actually just got a hydraulic jack, and you jack the wheel down, and then you take the weight off of that end, and this arm comes up, and you just steer it out. And it's there isn't a person here that couldn't do this by themselves.
It opens that way.
Yeah. It opens out either way, so this way or that way, or if we pulled both pins, we could push it right across the road.
The other option, James, we could do is there is a break up there in the cement barrier. So if the police stop the traffic there, they could reroute it through.
We'll talk a little bit about some of the specialized equipment that Lake Country Fire Department has, and most fire departments in the Okanagan Valley have. So we have our main apparatus that we use on a day-to-day basis for structure fires, such a house or an outbuilding or a barn. Wildland fires are pretty unique, and we have some specialized equipment that we have purchased over the years. These include everything from water tenders that carry large amounts of water. They're not primarily used for fighting the fire. We have small bush trucks that we can take off-road. They're four-wheel drive. We have two of them. And we also have two larger, what I call engines. They're large trucks, but they are four-wheel drive, and they carry a fairly large quantity of water, and they can access some of these areas that the normal structural engines would not be able to access. We are in part of the Okanagan here, part of the mutual aid agreement between all of the partners in the valley. So we can call upon all the other fire departments for assistance if we have a fire in our area, as they can do in their area. So that can bring a lot of resources in initially within a short period of time. The province will then step in and assist us by bringing equipment and apparatus for structural firefighting from all other fire departments that they can draw from throughout the province even. In addition to that, we have some specialized equipment for areas like the lakes on, for example, Apex Drive, which backs right onto wildland. So we have some large sprinklers that are set up, and they would make an envelope almost behind those homes that would create a water spray. And these sprinklers take a large amount of water, so they're really only be able to utilize them where we have fire hydrants and have a good water supply. But that can knock a fire down if it's coming towards the back of a number of homes. And we practice with that quite often, and it's another tool in the toolbox.